Well, everyone, welcome back to another panel session from the Blister Summit. I think what we'll do is go ahead and just have each of you introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit. We can do this real brief, just a little bit about who you are, where you are, and then we are going to get into a big conversation about artwork and the ski world, and perhaps we'll start opening things up a bit to art and the broader outdoor industry. So, Yorgo, since it's 2 a.m. in France right now, I feel like you deserve to go first. Yorgo, why don't we start with you and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to?
Hi, so my name is Yorgo Tloupas. I'm half French, half Greek. I live in Paris, and I'm an art director and designer, I guess. And I run a small design company called Yorgo & Co. And the reason I'm here is because one of my clients, and which is a bit more than a client, is Black Rose Skis, which I helped launch in 2006. And it's a brand which does more than skis now, but I did the logo, I do all the skis, and now I do everything. I mean, I've done everything visually that came out of the brand, from clothing to window displays to advertising and everything.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. And yeah, thanks for staying up late for us.
No worries, I'm happy.
Geoff McFetridge, friend of various Blister conversations, and very happy to have you back on this. And to tell the people who you are, Geoff.
Geoff McFetridge. I'm in Los Angeles, so an hour different from Mountain Time, Colorado. But I grew up in Mountain Time in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And so my beginnings as an artist were like skateboarding and then my first first real work was for snowboarding, because snowboarding was invented when I was just becoming an artist. So my first ever mass produced things were snowboards, even before I did skateboards. And then came to California to go to grad school, and also because skateboarding and the clients I had at that time. And so I've continued to have a relationship to the outdoor industry that's mainly based in loving the outdoors and being a skier and a snowboarder, and to me, it's very natural to always have a connection to outdoors type companies, as well as companies Yorgo very much so. He, has in Paris, he works for very high-end fashion brands, which I think is very normal in Paris to work for luxury goods brands. And I think being in California, it's very normal to work for outdoors brands.
Well, happy to have you here, Geoff. And John Fellows, my neighbor, my office neighbor. Tell us a little bit about yourself, John.
My name is John Fellows. I'm an artist and designer and illustrator based here in Crested Butte. So 11 feet right now for me. But mine I work in the outdoor industry primarily, with just other random jobs here and there. And it was after a long bout of just the normal designer story, where you just do a lot of horrible design for bad clients and just pays the bills and buys plane tickets so I could travel as much as I could. And then eventually just found the direction I wanted to go and just kind of concentrated on that. And then luckily I've always got to live in nice places, hence Crested Butte now. And so primarily my work's pretty much all in the snow and some other realms of the outdoor world, but that's about it. Hence you always see mountains in my work.
Last but certainly not least, Travis Parr. Travis, we're really happy to have you here, and tell us a little bit about your own background.
Yeah, kind of stumbled upon the arts as a young child and didn't really know what I wanted to do, but ended up getting a scholarship out to an art school out in California. And that's where I went. And 4 years of that, graduated, and then started Icelantic Skis. with my best friend, Ben Anderson. He was going to industrial design school up in Washington, and I was down here in Laguna Beach where I'm currently residing. And he called me up and was like, we're going to start a ski company. I'm like, let's do it, buddy. I've been skiing with this guy my whole life. We've been best friends, and I knew that he had the passion and the drive to get shit done. So did I. And we just kind of collided and created Icelantic Skis, which has now been on the market for 15 years. So it's pretty amazing to be able to have that opportunity and to start it with your best friend. I've been designing and illustrating. I'm a core illustrator, love design, and I love the idea of storytelling, whatever way that may be. And then, I kind of bring my own ways and forthright to what stories I want to create. And so that kind of keeps me driving towards being an illustrator and being an artist. And Icelantic has just been an awesome platform for me to kind of like not look at the galleries and really dive into a counterculture that wasn't really very art heavy at all. It was just pure design. And as an illustrator, my background comes in storytelling. And so I got to bring all of that to the table with this company and offer storytelling skis to the outdoor industry. So it's been a pleasure and an honor so far, and just going to keep going. So a couple other clients I work with, when I have the chance, I work with a lot of other clients too, to kind of bring visions and ideas and stories to their book as well. One of the clients I just dropped off was Fender Guitars. I'm currently working with the custom shop there, making some amazing instruments, just like skis are instruments. It's kind of one of my passions is artwork that actually moves and does something rather than just sit on the gallery wall for your mind to see. So it's been a really fun, I would say, adventure to kind of meld where I want to like put my focus on products or on canvas. So I guess that's it. And it's, like I said, super proud to be here, and hell of a crew right now. So thank you guys.
Yeah. I think if we can try to think through this in just terms of like, where are we right now? And do we like things? And let's kind of stay focused for the moment at the ski world. And as we're looking at kind of artwork and skiing, I kind of want to just open this up to you all and say, give us a sense of where you think we are. And are we in your view, did things used to be better? Are things getting better? Do you really like where we are today in this ski world? So, Geoff, I think I'll open with you. Gonna let you break the rack on this one.
For me, I'll start at my beginning, which would be like, it was an innovation to put a picture on a snowboard in the 90s. So like you take something like skateboarding and you put a picture on it. And then I think like in skiing, there's always been a current of like, depending on when you started skiing, you sort of liked the way skis were. So for me, my generation, there was always this sense of like, should skis look more like Oland's or old K2s that were like logo driven? And so there was this like push and pull of a ski that was like, had like an image on it or like represented something that was maybe like culture and like connected to something outside in like the real world, which is like mountain world isn't exactly real world or ski world. So there's like that sort of going on. Like, I think it's like, there's like, for me, like when, like I've always found making snowboards or skateboards or skis, like I did my first pair of skis actually this year. Like I've done snowboards, but I've never convinced a ski company to let me do skis. Like I've worked for Salomon and I've worked for K2 in the past, and I would say like, let me do skis, but no one wanted to. And I think that there was this sense of like, well, skis sell in some other way. They are more conservative, more like timeless or something, which I agree with. And I think that like the higher, like when it comes to doing anything, like I think that I don't necessarily think objects are better with a picture on them. I mean, I know they're not. I think objects can be like, I think that to give value to something is the highest goal, right? And so like, how do you give value to something? And you can give value to something by attaching a story to it with a tag. You can attach a story to it by saying like, oh, this person was involved in it. Or you can attach, like, you can like raise the value of something to increase the, like to have like an object create like this sort of like user experience. And so I think it's like, can you do that with pictures? Can you do that with stripes? Can you do that with history? Can you do that with materials? So I think that's sort of my view of like, as like an image maker, I often think like, do I really have the tools to make a ski better? And I don't really know, you know, like, I think like, I think I had said when we were chatting, like about like the ski industry being like an artless place, and that what I meant by that, not was an artless place, but that where there are other values. So like sort of like industrial design values, materials values, finishing values, like when you hold a ski, like what if it's shiny or if the edges are beveled, or, you know, as much as like, do you want it, like, I like that picture on it, or I like that brand, you know, people are very brand loyal. Anyway, so as a designer, as an image maker, like, where do you sit with skis? And I don't really know the answer to that.
That's awesome. Great answer. Love that. It's amazing. I mean, that's like what skiing is kind of about, you know. It's like, it's the artist and the craftsmanship of the actual ski, and how does playing with the visuals on top of something that's already beautiful, do you take away from that, or does that enhance it? I think that was really, really awesome to hear. I really appreciate it.
And I would throw it to Yorgo as someone who has, I think, designed some of the most beautiful skis we've seen over the past, I mean, almost like a decade now. And I think like, I think of Black Crow skis, like if they sucked, I'd still ski them because they look rad. And I think it's like diabolical, but
sure.
They're pretty
that's the artist's mind, you know, that's awesome. I love it.
But I must disagree on the artless thing, because I think, you know, skiing, because of the object, basically, of the tool, of the trade, it's one of those sports where there's a canvas. So there's not that many sports with a canvas where the tool is a canvas. So you have skiing, surfing, skateboarding, and it kind of stops almost there. I mean, maybe windsurfing, but not really. But if you think of basketball, tennis, football or soccer, whichever you call, none of those sports have got a canvas. You know, they've got the ball, but the ball has never been kind of a surface. All the ball sports, very rarely has the ball become like a place where design or art was meant to be applied. And you think of those sports I've just mentioned, they're all kind of canvas sports. So I think that it's not really an artless industry in the sense that there's that shape, which really basically looks like a weird shaped canvas, because obviously you wouldn't have a canvas that's that long. But like, skateboarding is the ultimate canvas sport, obviously, because a skateboard pretty much looks like a painting. I mean, the size of it is very, very close to the size of a painting. And so with skiing, I think, you know, there's always been that surface that called for design. And I can't think of any, beyond those three sports I've talked about, I don't know, kayak, which other sports have got surfaces? Yeah, sails of sailboats. And interestingly,
yachting, like World Cup or whatever, America's Cup yachts.
Yeah, but then again,
super design.
It's super design, but it's sponsors. Unlike the kind of, you know, the average dude boat, which is moored in your harbor, doesn't have like a big painting on the sail, which is a shame, because that's a perfect canvas in a way. But it's kind of interesting that, you know, skiing has got that canvas, and it's flat on the top, flat on the bottom. So there's so much that can be done on there, I think.
No, I was being a little provocative to say that it's artless.
Well, yeah, it's not, obviously not like skateboarding, but it's not as art focused as skateboarding. Obviously.
I think it's like, is there a tension? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it also has a big history. Skiing's been around way before skateboarding, snowboarding.
Sure.
It has this type of utilitarian aesthetic already embedded in it. That do you need or want artwork to kind of detract from the actual meaning itself? This is a big question. I love seeing like everyone's take on skiing. That's what's crazy about it. It's like, it was easier for me to do a snowboard when I started Icelantic than do the skis. Mm-hmm. And so to take the skateboard, the surfing, the imagery of an actual culture, and that's what I love about culture, is that it actually has artwork that gets built on the years and years and years of this culture, which skiing is so utilitarian that skateboarding took the edge, snowboarding, and then snowboarding grabbed that, and then surfing grabbed it as well. But you look at surfboards and there's no graphics really on them. It's like you just want to see plain foam with the stringer. It's very design and utilitarian aspect of it. And now that's changing. I started a stand-up paddleboard company 2 years ago. Full on, it's like inflatable, so we can print these huge canvases, 11 feet. They're almost like murals on the water. And like you were saying, it has that capability of being a canvas, which I think is a great way to kind of philosophize about these different materials and different aspects of board sports or just canvases in general as artist to artist. So that's really awesome.
John, I'm curious what your take is on the canvas question.
Well, I think designing skis is definitely a lot different than a snowboard is a bigger canvas, and so is a skateboard. So I think if the idea is there, it's easier to create an image that's, wider than that,
Worse shape.
So I think that's like the biggest challenge, is like what kind of interesting idea you can come up with that will fit into this, either if it spreads across two skis or even if it's just on one and they're repeated. Like, what can you do? Because that's a tight thing to work with. To really distill an idea down into a thin shape that's really tall but thin, I think is a lot more difficult, especially if you're more of like an illustrative type person. For me, like, it's always hard to like try to figure out how to make something this wide but this tall, like look interesting. When doing a skateboard, that's a good sized canvas. You can do a lot with that.
Yeah, and the analogy I use when I try to explain to my students or designers, I'm like, okay, it's as if you were supposed to design something on a matchstick. Is that how you call them when you eat Chinese food? Matchstick? So that's it.
Chopstick.
Chopstick, sorry.
Yeah.
What's a matchstick again?
That's for lighting fire.
Well, kind of the same. But actually, chopstick. Imagine, chopstick is a good example because basically there's two of them.
Uh-huh.
So,
I like this.
Chopstick design. Good luck.
Okay. So just as we've been talking about where is there consensus and where do we have a divergence of opinions, where do we want to rank then, say, compared to snowboarding? If I think many of you have said that there tends to be more artwork on snowboards or in the snowboarding world, is this literally because of the shape of these tools? Yes or no? Jeff's going with no. Go ahead, Geoff.
I mean, I think it's a minor thing. I think it's more something that, like, if we had someone, well, Travis, I guess, can answer this, but I think that's like market forces and like what sells a ski to who and why. It has to do with like retailers, what they want, what buyers want, the age of buyers, the age of shop owners, who's coming into the market. Like, it's like snowboarding. Like when I started snowboarding, it was like people were buying their first snowboard ever. because they've never bought one before. And then skiers, it's like, I'm replacing a pair of skis, or I'm an older skier, or I'm buying skis for my family, or, I mean, it becomes like super three-dimensional. I think it's sort of interesting to talk about like, well, what is the use of, I think the use of graphics for it's like building a brand, an image that gives value to something, you're branding, or are you creating like a special edition? Like for me, I made those skis for K2 and it's just going to happen once. So it's sort of like this limited thing. So are you selling skis because it's like, oh, these are going to be gone next year? Like I have these same skis, but I want them with this graphic. Or are you, these sort of, which that gets into some, is sort of like it's less about design and it's more about marketing. Like you're not designing to express something about K2. It's like you're remarketing literally an existing product with image. And so for me, it's like when I'm often in that position, I think it's like on me to give value in some other way. So what I did is I created a sort of a depth of story that I don't even talk about, but like in the skis, it's like a film strip telling a story about the experience of the outdoors and like this sort of like the goal of having experience for like sort of inner like realization of like yourself. And it's like no one asked me to tell this story, but it's like that's a way of giving value to something instead of like treating it like, oh, this is like a hype, like just doing something to be cool or something. But that's basically what it is. And so it's like, so as a designer, when you're starting a project, like where do you decide where you lie? Are you trying to fit something? If you're working for a ski company, are you trying to fit it within a line? Are you creating a new part of the line, or is it a limited edition? Or like, is it a picture, or is it something that is more graphic, that is like about like being part of someone's body, like you're attached to skis. So I think it's like your head is attached to, it's like part of like an entire thing. The skis aren't independent from your body. They are like part of one thing. And I think that is, that's like, I think that's unique as well to ski.
Travis, Geoff was just talking about, does art sort of reinforce and really help to establish the identity of a company? Feel free to respond to some things that Geoff just said, but if this was always part of the original idea with Icelantic, or maybe conversations between you and Ben, or was Ben just like, do something cool on these skis?
Well, it definitely happened. Ben said, do something cool on these skis. And at the beginning, it was that struggle of the chopstick mentality. It was such a tough way to design, but I think over the years, I'm kind of a natural at it. I don't want to say that out loud, but I guess I just did. So
yeah, you did.
It's recorded. No, I kind of have my tricks, and like I feel like artists design in their own unique way. And I mean, you look back in history of things that are really skinny, and then like a totem, for example, could be a good example of maybe a pair of skis.
Yeah, very much so.
I kind of have that totem mentality, and I've kind of been creating illustrations this way, of layering it this way and also this way. And it's just, I think I've just gotten really lucky in the sense that my natural ability wants to design things in this vertical format versus like a super horizontal. But at the same time, I do really nice landscapes that sell. So it's kind of what I kind of want to just go back to the aesthetic of it. And are you creating artwork for artwork's sake, or are you trying to create design that's going to take this product to the next level, even if this product hasn't even evolved for a couple years? And how do you treat that like marketing, or do you treat that like artwork? The answer is both. As long as you're, in my opinion, you have ethics and responsibility as an artist to showcase art and a story, then that's as far as it really goes for me. I love design. I love storytelling. It's It's how can we do this over and over and over again, even if the skis are the same. It kind of brings that idea of exclusivity, which these are sold out, but then we have new skis. But then as an owner starting this company, you can kind of run into problems with that too. It's like, whoa, well, certain people liked last year's graphic more than this year's graphic, but guess what's still the same? The skis. Mm-hmm. And so how do you differentiate your approach based on that? I just do what I love, and I keep designing and keep illustrating, and I'm not really looking back, but the past has definitely brought me to this point that I'm at right now. And so this is like one of those ideas and those struggles that, you know, I'm constantly trying to figure out. Like I have to design the whole Icelantic line for next year coming up right now with a super baller year that happened before. And it's like, how do I manage this pressure or keep my authenticity as an artist without trying to just, you know, make a pretty ski for a pretty ski's sakes. You know, back in the day, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I abandoned painting and design like altogether, and then just went with my instinct, and I did sculptures. And I'd never sculpted before, not on this kind of scale. And I went in a studio, I busted out like, I think 13 original sculptures. And then I took photos of those and then designed the skis after the art. So there is this kind of like, you can create the art and then you can get a designer, and then you can kind of have best of both worlds kind of colliding into this aspect as well, which I really love.
Well, I think for me, like one of the best things past couple of years, like going to SIA, was like walking in and seeing what Yorgo and like Travis, since they established such an identity with Black Crows and Icelandic, that the idea of like the same person doing the skis every year, it's got to be so hard. Like mentally, that would crush me probably. Like if every year I had to like figure out what to do different, but it's still going to be my style. And like with Yorgo taking the chevron and then every year just being able to make something amazing looking with this little graphic icon, and just the way he switches it up just enough that it looks completely different, but insanely like beautiful, you know? And same with Travis. It's like every year, well, I'm horrible at painting. So like looking at his paintings and stuff, that when he does a full painting or he does digital and painting and everything together, like it's amazing to see what they can do year to year. And it's just different every time. Even though you can tell the same person did it, it's just, I don't know. It's like, for me, it's like all my stuff looks the same, you know, it's like, but like, yeah, like seeing brands like that. And then like when Ryan Schmies was with K2, like seeing what he was going to pull out, you know, because all those other brands, you know, they just have an in-house designer and then they hire an illustrator out of house, like me or Geoff, just come in, do a ski or two, and then they're on to the next thing. You know, it's like there's so much less pressure with us than like these guys having to sit there and figure out how to design like 10 skis. So they all look different, but they all look the same, you know, and then do it year to year. It's just, that's kind of mind boggling for me.
Yorgo, can you speak to this?
Well, there are a couple of things that were said that were quite interesting. First of all, I love the analogy of the totem, because I'm like, yeah, well, that's interesting. And I've been thinking since Travis said that, I'm like, which other art or decorative or architectural piece has got such an elongated shape? And apart from antique columns, to be honest, and which were not really varied in terms of their surface, just had those stripes, you know, the Greek and the Roman columns, okay? And maybe you could find some columns in ancient Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia had more of a kind of decorative and irregular type decoration. But the totem is such a great analogy, I think, and that's really like we have to do totems every year. And it's a tricky one, it's so tricky. At first, when I'm the same as Geoff. I come from skateboarding and snowboarding. And funny enough, I don't know if we talked about this, Geoff, but my first ever job was designing snowboards, like straight out of art school. Basically, my end of studies diploma project. You have to do one. And my school, it's a 5-year course in Paris, and that's cool. And you've got the final 3 months, you have to do a project. And my project at the time, I wanted to do a snowboard brand, and I was sponsored. I was riding for Rossignol. I was doing freestyle competitions, and I told the brand manager, I was like, "Oh, can you print out snowboards? I want to have I want to create a fake snowboard brand and put it on my booth at the end of the year in the school, And he's like, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to call it Orange." I thought that was a good name. Funny enough, there's a bicycle brand in the States called Orange, right? But it's also the main mobile phone carrier in France now, but it didn't exist back then. So anyway, so I had that name in mind. And the guy was like, "Oh, yeah, well, Orange, okay, we'll print you snowboards, but they're not going to be called Orange." I was like, "What?" They're going to be called Rossignol. And if we like them, we'll buy them. You'll do the next season snowboards. So I did that, exhibited it in the school, put them in my dad's car. I just got my driving license. I was 21 or something. I know that's very old for the States to get a driving license, but still. And drove to Verbier, where every summer I was doing the training camps, the snowboard camps, but they also had this kind of marketing meeting. And I came with this, with my boards and the logo, and they bought everything. So this, to go back to Geoff's thing, basically skateboarding and snowboarding, I think, have got a way more, the community, the buyers and the actors of the industry were, at least I'm talking about 20 years ago, way more inclined to go towards visual, strong visual directions for the product. And if you look at the first snowboards, almost in the first year of Burton, they started having graphics, like very specific, non-technological graphics. If you look at skis from the 20s to the 50s to the 60s, they're all very simple. They've got a line in the middle, the brand at the top, and maybe something written on like a logo on some kind of chevron at the spatula. But snowboards, from the first years of snowboarding, they had graphics, like the Burton Safari, if you think of it, with all the zebra colorful print, Sims, Burton, Winterstick, they all had graphics. I don't know why, why is it just a period of time when people were more inclined to go for graphics, or was it kind of a rebellious attitude? Okay, we're not like skiing, we're kind of more underground, we're not allowed on the slopes. I've literally don't have an idea, like I'm not a historian, but clearly snowboarding from the start was a graphic adventure. Like very, very quickly, every season you would buy the Burton catalog or get it somewhere and be super excited about the new graphics, which I don't think was the case in the skiing industry. But I come from snowboarding, so I wouldn't know that much. But clearly, I think it happened. The whole thing merged, and by the mid '90s, skiing was a very visual industry. But which I don't think it was that much before. I mean, I've got some, Geoff was talking about old K2s with the logos kind of repeating itself and destructing itself to the bottom. And, there's other brands like Volkel had amazing skis. And
I love Volkel.
And Sanner, do you know Sanner? Oh my God, I should share my screen. I've actually got some pictures. And but I didn't know anything about the ski graphics industry. I had like memories of my childhood, like Rossignol, kind of 80s stuff. But really why am I talking about this? What's the debate? What's the question? If skiing is a graphics or visual industry, I'm not so sure. I think it is now, but it clearly, I don't think it wasn't a few years back. It took time to kind of get to that.
Let me ask a I think we'll do this question pretty fast here, almost yes or no, or give me a sentence. Do you agree with this? It seems to me Yorgo just said that he thinks that skiing is becoming more artful, that it is actually, we are trending. Well, if you care about artwork and design, things are actually getting better now in the ski world.
They're clearly getting more artful, better. I don't know, but yeah, I think they are getting better. And you just need to look at the industry. So a while back, you only had the kind of small brands that were kind of trying stuff out. Now, when you have the behemoths, the huge Austrian, American, French companies doing, very visual skis, it's clearly a sign that it's getting more into that direction. So yeah, I think it is getting much more visual and I wouldn't say arty, but visual.
Geoff, do you agree with this?
Yeah, I think so.
John?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like it's just like anything, it goes in waves. It's like there was a lot of visual and very artistic skis for a while because that was the thing. And then last year, the year before, everything went back to like very just color blocks, like look at K2's, like very a lot of color blocks or just solid color skis and stuff. So I just think it's like anything. It's just depending on the season, depending on what, people are into. I mean, I don't think the ski industry as a whole, they don't embrace the arts as much as like the board sport sides of like snowboarding and, like skateboarding and surfing, where I almost feel like all those cultures just go hand in hand with like music, art, and then the sport, And so I think skiing is always trying to play catch up a little bit with some of that.
The frequency of skis coming out is pretty low compared to the other board sports. I mean, snowboarding is the same, but skateboarding, and that's what really my visual culture partly came from skateboarding, because I don't know how many skateboard companies there are in the world, but when I started skateboarding in the mid 80s, there were probably like 20 brands. Each brand was releasing, I would say, 4 collections a year. Each collection had like 10 boards. And so in a year, you're like an 11 or 12-year-old kid, you're going to see 1,000 graphics, like 1,000, literally. Yeah. And some of them, like illustrated, some of them photographic, some of them purely graphic, letters, typeface, whatever. And it was crazy when you think of it. And if you skate regularly, you go through, 8 or 4 to 10 boards a year. Obviously much more if you like skate properly, but still. So you have these choices to make every few months. You have the choice. You go to the skate shop. You kind of know which shape you like, which brand you like, which wood, etc. But the graphics are so important. Whereas in skiing, it's once a season or sometimes even less. And so, that's also maybe I think one of the reasons why skateboarding is still to me the kind of pinnacle of a visual sport. There's no sport that's created so many talented artists. I mean, everyone talks all the time about Spike Jonze, but there's many others that came from skateboarding. Geoff being one of them. So, that's the thing with skiing. The industry, the fact that it costs so much to print out those skis, and even at Black Rose, sometimes we do carryover. We do same graphics for 2 seasons for obvious economic reasons. And we decide, okay, we're going to change maybe 3 graphics, or we're going to bring a new model, a new color. It's going to be the same graphics. And so it's not as easy as with skateboarding, where it's just a plank of wood and silk screen,
Yeah. I think that's really cool though, to bring stuff over. I think that's a type of like breaking a certain moment.
Hmm. Travis, I want to just get your take on this question of, I am a little bit surprised that Yorgo and Geoff at least and John have said that they think we're trending in a positive direction in the ski world when it comes to art, and not, bracketing Icelantic and the work you're doing yourself. Do you agree with this generalization?
I listen to everybody, I just have to say, Yorgo, you grew up snowboarding and skateboarding. I grew up skateboarding and snowboarding. And so I went to art school. So for a ski company to embody the idea of these professionals who are skaters, snowboarders, and skiers and bring that culture into it, I think you're looking at like two of the icons right now. I mean, I grew up snowboarding and skateboarding. Just recently, you know, I would do skiing 50% of the time, but recently I'm just like pure ski now. But before, you know, it was like snowboard. And kind of, I think as designers, we took that culture and these ideas. Like, I like to look at surfing. Like, if you think about surfing, there's all these iconic representations of artwork around this culture. Skiing, not so much. Snowboarding, yes, because of surfing. And I think it takes people out of the wheelhouse of skiing to come in and inject ideas and things like that to this sport to actually kind of bring it into the other realms of where everything else is going. And that's how I see it right now. I mean, you talk about skateboarding as a kid and snowboarding, and I was the same way. And I ended up being on a ski company. But at the same time, as an artist, when I was coming out, there was hundreds and thousands of graphics with so many artists on these snowboards that I looked at it and I told myself, I was like, well, how am I going to get recognized as an artist in the snowboard world? And it was going to be a lot of hard work. And, you know, I've worked for 686 and Rusty surfboards and things like that. But at the same time, when we created Icelantic, there was nothing else out in the market like this. Mm-hmm. And so it was a no-brainer as an artist for me to be like, wow, let's really shake this up. And we're going to be that company that does it. I mean, even the shapes and the models that we were creating for the industry were not conventional skiing. No. It was this hybrid between like snowboarding and skiing, which is funny because Ben was skiing and I was snowboarding. And then we were just both all the time going on the mountain together and like hitting the same jumps and just going through this life as a skier and a snowboarder that I think ultimately that's kind of what we bring to the table at Icelantic, is that it's both. It's the traditional skiing, but it's also the traditional skate and surf and snow. And then we kind of just melded it together with both of our personalities to create what we're creating. And, you know, I love skis that, you know, like other people were saying, it's like, if I had my pair of skis, it would be blank. It would be a black top sheet. It wouldn't be all this artwork on it. But I think the importance of bringing that culture and an image to this sector of skiing, which has never really happened before, not in the sense of what's happening now, was a real eye-awakener. It's like, oh man, this is it. Like, I don't want to go work for a Never Summer. I don't want to go work for Never Summer. I'm going to say that because of Colorado, but I don't want to work for another snowboard company because they just rifle how many different artists out every year and just pay them, make a bunch of money off their artwork, pay them a little bit, and then move on to the next and move on to the next. And as an artist, like, seeing that cycle with these companies that are doing stuff like that just makes me sick. And it just devalues the actual artist, but then puts their art in more of a marketing kind of money-making scheme, which as an individual, and if you're going to be a freelancer, it just rapes the industry. And I don't support that at all. And I knew, like, starting Icelantic, you know, I could be that artist that can do this. And, you know, ultimately, you know, Yorgo, like, I'm just now hearing your story that you've been with Black Crows since the beginning. I thought I was maybe one of the only other ones that have actually done that. And
it's very rare.
There's a tried and true, like, idea of, like, wow, one artist has done all of it and, like, and benefited with their career and financially. and everything, instead of just, okay, we need the next hottest thing, you know, and that's marketing. It's like, oh, we need the next hottest artist here. Let's go out, grab those artists, bring them in, pay them very little and make a lot. And that idea in business just, I don't appreciate. I don't know if that answered the question, but that was my 2 cents on that. I needed to get that in.
I'd like to ask you guys, and I'm just going to throw this out and see what you think. But as you are all talking about what you've seen in the ski industry in terms of art and the like, in these different perspectives, I have had many conversations over the years with the ski engineers and the product managers or the brand managers and marketing people. And honestly, a lot of the time, it's like, okay, we're coming out with this new ski. Can we just put something on the top sheet that will kind of be innocuous and hopefully maybe nobody notices? And then it's like there is a real fear that the art is going to get people to not purchase the thing that they just built. And so it's almost a little surprising in some ways when you all are sort of not, I don't want to say all, but there's been a lot of this, like, we think it's getting better. And I keep thinking of all these conversations that I have a lot where it's like, can we just do something and it doesn't make people go buy the other thing? Thoughts on that? What do we say or think about that? Travis?
Okay, and I'll be quiet for a minute. You know, there's a lot of talent involved in creating the shape and the materials and how the ski performs. I mean, we're talking about the Olympics here, and people hucking meat down 80 miles an hour down a super GS course. That in itself should be the focus, is the engineering and the quality of the product, because you're putting your life into it. And so if you throw some artwork on it, you gussy it up a little bit, and it's a shitty ass product, then that person could potentially kill themselves. Yeah. And so there is this idea, in my mind at least, between the artists that actually create the actual ski and the performance versus slapping a top sheet on it and making it look good and selling a shit ton. And so I think, you know, I'm just going to say this since we're live, Icelantic does both. We go in, we have the best skis on the market, 3-year warranty, no questions asked, and we throw some great artwork on it. That's how it needs to happen, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, you're never going to escape what Jonathan said. And we're faced with this, you know, some people are going to go into a shop and they're going to see our skis, and especially like our touring skis, which are monochrome. And someone's going to say, oh, I want the pink one. And then the person in the shop is going to say, oh, well, actually the pink one only comes in huge sizes and is really stiff, and you probably don't have the level for that ski. And they go like, I don't care. So they get the pink one. So you can never escape the fact that some of the customers are going to go for something purely based on aesthetics. So, which is kind of good, but it's also, as you just said, you know, it's kind of a life and death thing in our case, because the pink touring ski is the Corvus Freebird, and it's I wouldn't say it's unskiable, but if you're not a good skier, I would not recommend the pink one, basically. Yeah. So
I've tried to talk someone out of buying that pink ski, and they didn't listen to me. I was like, do not get the pink one. Green's nice. Yeah, it's I think that's an interesting question for the ski company owners, because I think back to what Travis was saying, I think that, like, if you look at the structure of the ski industry, like, how many times have these big companies been bought and sold? Who owns them? How many art departments have they been through? Because in the ideal world, that the room where the design team is like right next to where the engineering is, and, you know, there's the industrial design, the visual design, but they all sort of they're in this room, they understand the goal of the brand. And the goal of the brand might be like we make performance skis that are very, like, but that are also, double as like touring skis, or you have some, like, ideally you have some use. You're not just like ski company, right? And so that there's some, even like I think like design at its greatest, like, can communicate very subtle, they're not even ideas, but it's like a subtle feeling or sense that you can't articulate any other way but with visuals. And that can be a color, it can be a stripe, or it can be a painting. And I think that the reality is what's most important is that connection to that humanity behind a brand, which is somebody started with an idea, with a thought. So with both Icelandic and Black Rose, it's like, there's a very clear understanding that there's human beings behind those skis. It's not like owned by venture capital, or they're not such a big European company that have this thick, like impenetrable, like sort of opaque gauze of racing, for example, that is very hard to understand.
John, what are your thoughts on this, listening and taking all this in?
I think for like the smaller boutique brands, it's an easier thing to kind of like not think about, because they're trying to set themselves apart. So they're going to go with what they like, I think once you get to those bigger brands that worry about like, am I going to be able to sell thousands and thousands of these to ski resorts as rental fleets, and stuff like that, or that's, like to the Midwest and stuff like that, that just want a simple graphic, they want to know the ski they're buying is good, but they just want something like, I think you said like innocuous or just very simple, because that also just fits their aesthetic, or it's a ski that will fit the aesthetic of like thousands of people, so I think it's something maybe the bigger brands worry about more than some of the smaller ones that can take more of a, a leap of faith into some designs and stuff. So, because if K2 doesn't sell like that giant rental fleet to like 12 different resorts because of the graphic, that's something to really worry about. And I think that's something that they probably think about a lot when they're talking about it. And they want to make that ski that, like maybe 60% of the population are going to be super happy on, because it's going to be for groomers, or, like between the green runs and up to dabbling into like a black or something like that,
I have a weird question for you all. I keep trying to imagine something like if we had a czar for artwork in the ski industry, and if you got to be the czar, would there be a principle that you would like to, you could be a benevolent dictator if you like, or you could, be not that benevolent. So would there be suggestions or extremely strong commands or principles that, based on your own experience and perspective, you would like to say, hey, industry, we're moving in this direction now? That's my weird question. Good luck. Who is brave enough or silly enough to try to answer this? And who wants to be our first czar of art in the ski industry?
Well, clothing. I mean, I also need to talk, when I talk about ski, I want to talk about outfits. And, actually, funny enough, we haven't talked about the ultimate chopstick, designing a ski pole. Good luck. This is like the hardest thing on earth. I mean,
next level.
It's so thin, and there's like so many constraints because your graphics can't touch on one side. I mean, the overlap is super precise. I mean, you can't overlap actually, but the way you need to finish the graphic to not have that line of non-printed thing, forget it. So anyway, the industry, I think, is kind of, we don't have to ban those kind of, how did you call those beanies with the pointy things?
Like the dreadlock, the hat with dreadlocks attached to it?
Yeah, but the colorful dreadlocks with sometimes a kind of...
The jester.
Oh, yeah.
So they don't need to be banned anymore because they're out, really. We can't see them. We could actually re-invite them in the landscape,
Okay, I get that.
So Yorgo's first move as czar of art in the ski industry is we're going to go back to jester hats.
Exactly.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
I think that's already here. I saw that last weekend here in Crested Butte.
Here in CB, it's yeah, it might be more popular here than a lot of places, I think. But yeah.
But it's funny because I was looking yesterday at the Corvette competition.
Yeah.
Kings and Queens, and the outfits. You couldn't see much of the skis. You could see that's actually quite interesting. It was foggy. The conditions were really bad, and all you could see were the outfits and the snowboard bases. Like barely, the skis were so thin from far away. Guys doing spins and stuff. All you could see, I could barely, I was trying to see if someone was riding Black Rose. I couldn't see it because it was too foggy. But I could clearly see if someone was riding a Burton snowboard, like for sure. That's actually, also a factor that you have to take in consideration when you design skis is the visibility from afar. And it was, but then again, so just to go back to the industry, how it's going, all the outfits were pretty cool. And one of the speakers said, oh, it's interesting. This year, everyone's wearing top and bottoms in the same color. They're not like one pieces, but the jackets and the trousers are monochromatic. And they said, oh, it's kind of cool. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. We've been doing that for a few years at Black Rose, and I quite often dress in monochrome. But yeah, so I think it's going in the good direction. So as a czar, apart from bringing back the jester hat,
yeah, you're going to go stand among the masses and say, "Good job."
No, for real.
Yeah. Okay. Geoff, if you're a czar, year 2, you get to be czar. What are we doing, or what are we not doing anymore?
I mean, I think built into that is like you can't with like visual culture, like it's like you just want to, like it's sort of like it's really like the rule, like visual culture is like one of the goals is like, how do you break rules? Like, oh, like we'll break this rule and that's what we did. Like, oh, you can't do photos, so we'll do photos. You can't do, so like it's corny to do that, so we'll do that. So like it's like making rules is like very difficult. But like you also, so I think it's like instead of making like rules as the czar, you put these, it's sort of like, I think of it as like creative prompts. It's like it's like the John Cage or who was it that did the what did they call it? Anyway, I can't remember. But they're like the book of creative prompts. And I think it's like you go like, oh, like each ski company has to hire a designer from outside the ski community. Like how can you bring other voices into skiing? Or how can you have like someone like have like the materials designer do the graphic or do something like this one's done by someone who lives in a ski town or is like a ski patroller or something, like go like deep inside and like deep outside. But like, I think like there could be maybe like better prompts that really like answer some problems with the industry, maybe, or not problems, but like limitations of the industry that are about like, to design like that you do new graphics every year. Like, why don't you have like, make your one, like, I think a lot of like surf companies, like, so a lot of companies will have the thing, or like luxury goods companies, like they always make the same bag every year, but just change materials. So like challenge to be like, how do you create less waste and like get out of this like sort of like sick, like whatever, there's the trade show and it's like, here's the same product with different graphics. Like no one is fooled anymore. And now there's like a whole world where products are designed like basically pre-sold, like, okay, this is like the graphic for this year. How many people want to buy it? Pre-sale it. And then it gets sold like direct to consumer and like these new models and that are healthier models and that have like, you have a better relationship with your manufacturers. There's less waste and there's less of this sort of like predicting what people like. And I think that like the thing you said about like a good design that people don't like the graphics, like I totally feel for that. Like when I'm putting a graphic on anything, I'm like, oh man, like I don't like, who am I to say, and I also don't believe like the graphic, like sort of, I don't know, like you want to give value to things. And the thought of like taking value away is like every designer's.
Okay, I like this. So Geoff as czar, we're going to get into creative prompts. John, what are you doing as czar?
I don't even think it's a job I could take because I don't feel like my aesthetics, like the things I like, not everybody likes, and the things, like my other artist friends, a lot of the art they like, I'm like, really? You like that? you know? So it's just all subjective. So it's like, I think you can't really have one person kind of putting together stuff because not everybody's going to agree with it, you know? Cause you know, how many times is like Travis and Geoff, you've made like a painting that you're like, this is awesome. It's going to be the first thing to sell at a show. And then it's like the last thing to ever sell. And that piece that you were like I've made filler pieces. I'm like, oh, this sucks, but I just need to stick it here. And all of a sudden it's the first thing that sells that you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah,
so
totally.
I think for me, it's just like an idea. I can't really place myself into that situation, you know?
Okay. Travis, if you're a czar, one of the things you've already told us, I think you would say, all right, we're not going to do this thing where we're burning through artists and paying them very little. Like that's something it seems like would be on your platform.
I guess the number one thing, it's really simple, is that like we have this awesome industry and everybody in this industry loves each other. And so it's not about corporate America and like trying to beat the other dude. It's all about every company coming out with their unique voice and their unique way of designing skis to bring that idea in the collective unconscious. So that there's not just one option, that they have multiple options to choose from. But the trick is, if I was czar, I would say authenticity is number one. And every person in this category, if they either have to have authenticity or not, or you're out. I don't know. I don't know. Because I believe like that's the stew. It's like all the different flavors in this kind of create the ski industry or create other industries. And if we all come together and know that we have our own fingerprint and we're not trying to beat the other guy or trying to do this, but we're just trying to really be authentic to ourselves and the actual product itself through manufacturing and distribution, God, we're just going to win. And then everyone's going to be super stoked in this industry if we do that. And so that would be my czar move is to keep everybody authentic, unique, and offer something to the world that you at least a couple people or a bunch of people will really enjoy getting out into nature. I mean, that's the one.
Well, gentlemen, while I am tempted to just keep asking questions until Yorgo finally just signs off and we just see a blank screen there, I do want to respect your time, but maybe I will ask you to each just give us a parting thought, perhaps tease a topic, I don't know, for next year or something that we should be thinking about when it comes to this topic of art in the ski world and design in the ski world.
Well, I can say I can finish off, but yeah, thanks for having me as part of this. And I can tell you, like I balance my time. Like I have shows and I have in projects that like I generate on my own as I'm the boss and I'm the client and the artist. And I always return to projects in the outdoor industry. And I think that says something, that it's like really fun to make stuff in a world that you respect and you love, but also there is room within it to make interesting things. And I think that the stuff we're sort of discussing, those are like challenges. So like, I like to continue to do design. I don't just want to make art every day that's just like and have art shows. I want to like take on design projects and work in industries that offer challenges, that I go like, man, I don't know how to do a chopstick. I don't know how to make a chopstick look good. Yeah. Or for a company that doesn't really even understand what I do. So I have to like, there's these sort of, it's a little bit like CrossFit a little bit. Like it's like a little bit unpleasant at times, but you like return to it because you come out of it it's rewarding. But I do think that says something about like the outdoors industry in general, like that there's like room in it for great work to be made.
Travis?
Return to nature. I don't know. Do what you love. Surround yourself with the right people and just elevate it all with each other. That's all I gotta say. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to reconnect with all of the artist panel here and start the conversation. So you guys are awesome. I really appreciate what you do and keep doing it. The world's better for it.
John.
I think it's the same advice you could kind of for any creative industry where if you're an illustrator and designer and stuff, for me, it was my style has kind of been there for a long time. Like the industry never recognized it for a long time. The design world didn't recognize it because when I started doing everything by hand, it was like doing all my work is hand carved and hand printed. Everything was just like beautiful computer work or realistic computer illustrations. And so I think it was just sticking with it. And eventually that whole recyclical thing came and like, oh, the industry caught up to what I was doing or finally valued it again. And so I think it's just sticking to what you love and, working hard. And then I think then those companies will come to you and value what you do. And I think that's the biggest thing is like finding those companies that value the work that you do, not just like, oh, you're like a big name, you're going to make money for us. It's like they actually see like what you're doing can relate to what their company philosophy is. So like working like with Patagonia and stuff like that, like I'm sure Geoff feels the same way. It's like your own personal beliefs align really well with some of these companies, and then that's like, I think what's nice to see now, a lot of those companies are stepping up and really pushing their company beliefs into environmental issues and stuff like that, that it is nice to finally see that and not just work for a company just for the sake of a company's name, And I think that's been one of the hardest things when you get approached by companies that you don't fully believe in like their background. It's like they might be cool at the moment, but it's like, do they actually align with a lot of the stuff that you think, And I think that is the biggest hurdle for me now.
Yorgo.
The luck we have in working in that industry is that there's two things. First of all, the pleasure of doing something that ends up on an object that is going to end up under someone else's feet and that you're going to encounter in a line for a lift or on a lift or, wherever. That to me, that's unrivaled. I've never had as much pleasure as a creative person as that. I've done ad campaigns where I could see my posters on the street, but it's not the same thing because the poster is imposed to people on the street. When someone has a pair of Black Rose skis and that they fit, they've chosen them. I mean, they might have chosen them because they love the skis, they hate the graphics. I never know. I will never know. But there's a chance that, that was part of their decision to get those skis. So it's a very kind of, I must say, ego boosting thing. But it's also, you feel a link to them. You want to talk to those people. So I would give that advice to any young designer, work in an industry that produces objects and that you like, in a way. And so that's extremely pleasurable, I think. And so this is one of the nice things about this industry is that we produce objects, and they're, palpable and you can feel them. And the other thing is it's still, an industry where a lot of the actors are core, they come from the sport and they, or from the practice, or if they don't come from like a professional background, they practice it, Patagonia is a good example. There's that myth about Patagonia being a company where everyone goes and practices what they preach, but it's kind of true. And in some other industries, you're gonna be, people are not gonna be excited about what they do. In our industry, at Black Crows, for example, it's just one company, but most of the actors of the company ski, and some of them ski extremely well. A lot of them are ex-professional skiers. Our skis are actually shaped by Julien Régnier, who was, a legend, co-founder of Armada, Olympic mogul skier in Nagano in '96. His mother did the Olympics in France in slalom in '68. He lives in La Plagne. So you can't get more core than this. And that's a really nice thing about the industry as well. And I found this people saying those things in the skateboard and the surfing world as well. Like, can't remember the WSL, the World Surfing League, got a new CEO, I think, who wasn't a surfer, and there was a big uproar about it in the country. I think it was that or something. Yeah. So that's the good thing about this industry. It's still quite core, and you can feel it. When you're at ISPO, I don't do SIA, but I used to do ISPO in Munich. And on a Sunday, there's the kids' bull downhill race. No one works anymore. There's no one at the table doing a meeting. Everyone is in front of the giant screens looking the guys going down. And that's quite exciting, and that some of the people in the crowd next to you have done that race, you guess. And so I love that about this industry, and the object and the practice, basically.
Very well said. Hey, again, I don't know. I'm so thrilled that we could make this happen, and to bring you all together and to talk about these topics that, as Yorgo just said well, are very near and dear to all of our hearts. This is really special and a big deal for me. And I look forward to getting a chance to keep conversations going with some of you and pick up conversations with you guys. So thanks so much for this. And I think you all have, well, one, thank you for the work that I think it's so interesting to me, because if we look at the work that a lot of you each are known for, it's so different. And I think that's one of the things that's so interesting. We barely touched on it here, but to be doing work in such a distinct way, driven, as you all have well said, by such a passion for these things, this is just all very special. And I really hope that people, watching this panel and listening into this, I think you've given them all of us, a lot to think about and look forward to in terms of your future work. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to have individual conversations with each of you and bring things back around at some point down the line. So thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
See you, everyone. Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you all.